Hi everybody, I'm Lacy with Real Women, Real Success. This week we're going to be talking about bouncing back. It is a well-documented fact that a big difference between those who are highly successful and those who are not is that the highly successful have the ability to bounce back from adversity quickly. And so this is something that I want to suggest to you is innate within women's nature and character. We as women are the childbearing gender. And if you think about what that takes out of us, it's 9 months of investment where our bodies contort and do things they've never done before to accommodate for this child growing inside of us. And it's uncomfortable. And in those last months, it's really hard, right? You feel like a house. And then we go through the labor pains and the birthing process. And that is traumatic. I mean, it is really, really tough and painful oftentimes. And when all that is said and done, we're able to bring that child into our arms, look them in the eyes with a loving heart, and welcome them into our lives and look forward. We've just bounced back from adversity. The adversity and the stresses put upon our bodies to birth this child, and we've redirected our attention to the positive and our next right move. And that's all bouncing back really is. Now, I'm a huge advocate for the grieving process. Whenever there's a failure or a loss, we do have to go through that process. And, you can kind of get used to it and go through it quickly with some things, but there's always going to be those things that were unexpected, that are disappointing to us, that bring us down, that make us depressed for a day or two or a week. And going through that grieving process is really important because they've scientifically proven that you have to go through that to get out on the other side and move past it. So that's why they have the 5-step process. So go through it and help yourself get through that. If you need to vent, if you need a shoulder, you've created those lifeline relationships through your great relationship building skills. Lean on someone like that. Vent, ask for advice, get some support from your friends. I also would say that counseling, therapy is a great option. It's certainly something that I have utilized at times in my career because sometimes there's that stumbling block of something from your past or maybe even your childhood that just doesn't go away. And it will continue to stumble you if it doesn't get resolved. And we've all known those people who have conveyed to us the reason that their success has not been attained is because of some awful thing that happened to them in their childhood or whatever. They have not bounced back. They have not gone through the grieving process and gone through that therapy or that healing process that allows them to look forward to their next right move. So that's something that is really, really important to cultivate if we want to go to increasing levels of leadership, because top leaders bounce back quickly. Now, I want to mention something that's really, really important to acknowledge in this discussion, and that is that we all, at different periods of time in our life, may have those series of months or years that may be a dark time or a very challenging time. I know that we all have had friends who are dealing with ailing and aging parents, and that can oftentimes take a long period of time and investment, and it's difficult. It's hard to deal with. We have disappointments in our lives. Perhaps someone has lost a job, or there's been a death in the family, or we've had some sort of illness or sickness of our own. And sometimes it just seems like life is piling on and we're in a period that is either dark or challenging as compared to the rest of our lives. And those periods of time in our lives will happen. I fully acknowledge that, and they're not always that easy. In fact, I've had one recently myself a few years ago. It started with my boyfriend and I, who is now my husband, but we moved in together into a home, and 4 months after we moved in, it burned down to the ground while we weren't there. And that seemed like it started not a chain reaction, but a series of very difficult events in our lives. My mom's husband died, and then she had 3 very serious illnesses in succession. Just as one got better, there would be another one. My boyfriend and I both had challenges within our own families and our children. I, for some unknown reason, gained a bunch of weight. I later found out there was a health reason for that, but my organization doubled in size in 1 year, and I was having a hard time keeping up with all of that. We went through a huge election cycle, which is something that greatly impacts my organization, is very challenging. So there just seemed like life was piling on, thing after thing after thing, and we go through those things in life. What I found was I didn't give myself a hard time about it. I was disappointed with how I was looking and feeling, but I couldn't stay there and wallow in it. I just had to let myself go through this process of getting through all of this stuff. But one of the things that's really important, and I've heard this in other places before, is when you're in that, just pick one or two things, small things, micro movements towards where you hope to go, where you want to go, where your next step is, what life would look like if it were better when you're through this difficult time. And just make those micro moves in your daily or weekly life. For me, the first thing I did was I changed my shampoo. Believe it or not, that brought me great joy. And I started going for a half-hour walk once a week because I had stopped working out because I just didn't have time and dealing with all these demands. And that was the next right move for me that gave me a little bit of hope. I also leaned on a couple of my lifeline relationships. I leaned really heavy on them, and they were encouraging and brought me hope and helped me see beyond my own limited perspective in that time, because when you're in that space, sometimes your perspective is very closed in and you need some help seeing towards the brighter future. That all is part of bouncing back. That's bouncing back from an unfortunate life occurrence or unfortunate life circumstances. It doesn't always happen in days or weeks. Okay? So that's that element of bouncing back. But going back to the day-to-day grind, the day-to-day bouncing back, when there's a disappointment or a failure or something significant happens within your professional life, the one thing that all successful people do when something like that happens is bounce back quickly. So since we want higher and higher levels of leadership for women, since we want our success, we know we're able to do this, we know we're able to bounce back, we know we're able to figure things out. So how quickly can we do that so we can figure out our next smart move, our next right move, and start to move towards that place of where we want to be, the life we want, the hope that we want, and the happiness that we want. And that's what I want for you. So let's work on our bouncing back quickly. I certainly have multiple occasions on an ongoing basis to bounce back quickly, but let's be those people, I hope, that can bounce back within hours, days, or even weeks, rather than months, years, or perhaps never, like some people we know. So I hope that served you well. As you know, I'm your biggest fan, and I hope you go out there and have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you next time.